Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Drinks Jakarta. This time we're gonna be with Esti, so we'll just wait until people come join us, and we'll start. So I guess before we are joined with Esti from Komisi 7, I'll just explain a little bit about Green Drinks. So Green Drinks is a global movement. I suppose it's a global gathering of everyone, of anybody who calls themselves green, but be it working in energy or conservation, policy, or even entrepreneurship. And our team in Jakarta is currently made up of volunteers working in several different sectors. And previously we've had our first Green Drinks Jakarta in 2019 at WeWork and in Kuningan, and then we had a couple gatherings in Greenhouse, and then the pandemic started. So now we're moving on to IG Lives until we can all meet again. Okay, so she is here. This is Esti from Komisi 7, from the Parliament, or in Indonesian we call DPR. So here goes. There you go. Just waiting.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going? How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So today we are now gathered with Esti. Esti is from Komisi 7 of the Indonesian Parliament. Would you like to share a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you to Green Drinks Jakarta for the invitation. Looking forward to just having a conversation with you, particularly about sustainability and everything. But for everybody who don't know, my name is Dyah Roro Esti, and I'm a member of Parliament in Commission 7. So Commission 7 oversees the energy sector, the research and technology sector, the environment as well. And I represent the district of East Java, comprising of two cities, so Gresik and Lamongan. So that's just like a really short introduction for you.
Yes, thank you for sparing some time to hang out and talk about the environment with us. Do you have your drink? I should say it's Green Drinks Jakarta, and it is a very serious topic, but I'm trying to make it kind of chill.
Well, I have so.
Okay, good. Yes, I've got my tin water bottle with me, so it's just water, so it's nothing, it's nothing special. But okay, great. So last week, just a quick recap. We had a conversation with Melissa Kowada of Extinction Rebellion. Now, the end notes there, the main topic that we were talking about was of the NDCs, which is the nationally determined contributions that was handed into the IPCC, and what we discovered was that it may have not been binding, and I think there was still a lot more things that we could do, but the question remains, why aren't we doing it, or why is it not written, at least, for lack of a better term. So we would like to uncover that a little bit from the DPR side. We know that it isn't you per se that is exactly implementing it or designing it, or what is the role, I suppose, of the Komisi 7 in this whole picture?
So when we're talking primarily about the NDCs, or rather the implementation of the nationally determined contributions in Indonesia, I think firstly it's really important to note that this is legally binding in Indonesia, and it's been translated into what's called the Law Number 16, year 2016, or Undang-Undang Nomor 16 Tahun 2016, and that basically aims to decrease greenhouse gas emissions by 29% and also 41% with international aid. So that's pretty much kind of like the bigger picture of the implementation of the NDCs in Indonesia. And this has been ratified by Commission 7 at the time. So this happened in 2016. And at the time, this was ratified by Commission 7 alongside one of their working partners, which is the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. So that has been put into place. And you're right in a sense where I personally was not involved, you know, in the process of making that law and pushing that law through, because I've only just, I've only just gone into Parliament this year, right? For the next, inshallah, hopefully for the next 5 years. And so in terms of the process, I was not involved per se. But with regards to the implementation, of course, now that we have the law, one of our main jobs is to make sure that this legislation is being carried out in a way where it's meant to, right? And so that kind of just leads me into explaining about what the role, what our role is as parliamentarians. Okay, and I think it's really important also to make a clear distinction between DPR or the Indonesian Parliament with Kementerian or the ministry, quote unquote, also, you know, the government. And so the Parliament in this sense are the legislators, right? And so we are not the executive body, but we are there to create legislations, and we have three main functions. So one of them is legislation and also budgeting and supervision, right? Whereas the government in this sense, so Commission 7, our working partners are the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, and also the Ministry of Research and Technology. And, you know, even the oil and gas companies currently operating in Indonesia, they're also our working partners, right? And so in this sense, the ministry are the executors. So they're the ones responsible in carrying out these programs, right? And really just reaching the targets that's been put forth. Whereas our job in Parliament is to make sure that they're doing their job accordingly, and that they're meeting the standards, meeting the goals as expected, right? And so that's really just our job, to make sure that they're doing their job. And so this clear distinction is important. Why? So then the society's expectation is in par with what we do, right? And so I think this hopefully gives some sort of a background information to everybody viewing today into understanding the roles that we have.
Okay, thank you. So basically Komisi 7 is in charge of legislation, budgeting, and supervision, while the actual people implementing it will be the ministries. In this case, Ministry of Energy and Minerals, one, and then the second is Ministry of Technology. This is correct. Okay, so I think if I'm not mistaken, there's been a bit of a change. Is that correct, between the Komisi 7 now and the Komisi 7 then?
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of changes, and one of them pertaining to the working partners. So as I mentioned earlier, the Undang-Undang Nomor 16, so the legislation that's been put forth in realizing the COP21 Paris Agreement NDCs, right? This was worked upon alongside the Ministry of Environment. However, this term, the Ministry of Environment is no longer one of our working partners. However, this is still kind of like it's an internal thing that is still being discussed. So it's still under discussion, in a sense where we're hoping that it can come back to Commission 7. Why is this important? Because Commission 7, the members in Commission 7 were the ones responsible since the very beginning. And so it just makes more sense for us to make sure that that the standards are being met in accordance to what's been discussed a few years ago, since 2016. So if you ask me what's the main difference from this term and last term, it would be that, basically.
Okay, so the working partners are different, but I suppose then the focuses would be much more into renewables. Yeah, it seems like we're trying to get there. Well, that's cool. Okay, so NDCs, we were talking about the NDCs last week. And if I'm not mistaken, all of these targets are made for 2050. Is this correct, or are we looking at a much quicker time frame?
Okay, so the target for the NDCs, as I mentioned earlier, with the decrease in greenhouse gas emissions by 29% or so for Indonesia, that the target is for 2030. So it's even more sooner than 2050.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So all
Um,
targets.
yeah, so that's where our target is. And also there are a couple of different sectors when we look into the law, and when we look into it again in more detail, right? There are I think 5 main sectors. So one of them being the energy sector, the waste sector, IPPU, the agriculture sector, and also the forestry sector. Right.
Okay.
But for the sake of what we do in Commission 7, the most important in this sense is the energy sector. And so we're currently focusing on how we can, change the current energy mix, which is very much heavily weighted on fossil fuels, right? Like it or not, that's where we are now. We're still very dependent on fossil fuels. We're a fossil fuel generated economy, for the majority part, yeah, for the most part. And our goal right now is to make sure that we create some form of transition, so then we don't depend too much on fossil fuels, and explore the potential of implementing, and also just exploring the potential for renewable energy generation in Indonesia. Why is this important? Not
Yes.
only will it help decrease greenhouse gas emissions, um, but it will also generate, of course, electricity for society. And you know what, Bianca, the funniest part is, right, is that society, Indonesian people, they don't think about the source of energy, right? So when they're looking into like trying to have electricity in their houses, they don't really care if it's coming from fossil fuels or if it's coming from renewables, as long as the light is there, right? And so one of the problems that we have with renewables right now is that it's not competitive enough when we compare it with fossil fuels. So, and in terms of price. And so what we aim to do, one of the updates that I wanted to give you as well, is that we have successfully pushed for a bill on renewable energy to be one of the focuses for this year, 2020, up until 2024. And given this target, we're hoping to have this discussion on a more technical way as well, to make sure that we are tackling the issues that we currently are experiencing when it comes to renewable energy generation. And my hope in this sense as well is, how can we make renewable energy more competitive in the energy market, right? And so that is actually one of the main barriers that we are currently facing. And also the fact that we never had a payung hukum. How do I say this in English?
Overarching
We don't
law
have yet an
regulation.
overarching law or legislation in Indonesia. So because now that's been supported in the parliament, thank God, because to get to that point wasn't easy in itself. And so to have this innovation and this idea put into place is already a big thing in the Indonesian parliament. So what I'm hoping is that we get the discussions running, and that we officially as well, can pass the bill by 2024, hopefully even before that. Why is this important also, just to add up on this, is that we have a target. And so, okay, can I just go back quickly to the COP21 NDC, right? We have that. We have an overarching legislation, which is law number 16, year 2016. And then we also have what's called the National Energy Policy. And that's translated into Peraturan Menteri number 79, year 2014. Okay. And then there's also another legislation, and this is the national, what's it called? This is the RUEN, right? In Indonesian, it's Rencana Umum Energi Nasional. So again, it's a national energy plan as well, and this is governed through law number 30, year 2007. And so that basically talks about how Indonesia's aim at the moment is a 23% renewables target by 2025. And in realizing this target, one of the ways that us in Parliament, how we're kind of like helping to push this through, is to make sure that we have another overarching legislation, which is the law on renewables, right? So then we can not only quicken the process in terms of renewable energy installation, generation, exploration, but also how can we make renewables more competitive in the market, right? What kind of incentives do we need to give also for the renewable sector? And I was also actually suggested to the Indonesian Minister of Energy of how we should at least try and study the potential of implementing a carbon tax. So really just placing a tax on industries, sectors that emit more greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, this will make it easier for the renewable energy sector to be more competitive in the market. But as you know, this is a challenge in itself, right? It's a challenge in itself. Is it possible to implement? Well, at the moment, as I said, it's still being discussed, and I've specifically asked them to research on this and to do some sort of a feasible study to see whether it's possible to be implemented in Indonesia. If not, then what other solutions do we have? Because like you said, even in the beginning, that sustainability, I feel that sustainability needs to be in the center of every human activity. That's just what I believe, And
High five,
when we talk
girlfriend.
about sustainability, it's not even only about the environment, right? It's also how can we push forward economic progress, economic and also social progress, without forgetting about the environment. Because if we're too focused on economic growth, and less on the environment, I believe that there's no future for us without the environment, right? So economic growth will never be possible if we don't take better care or enough care to the world that we currently live in, right? And so that's just I don't know, just a few thoughts that I wanted to share with you. But in terms of the legislation, now we've successfully passed it in the Parliament. Well, to be talked about, right? And we're just hoping that we can get the bill passed through by the end of the term. Fingers crossed.
So the end of the term would be 2025. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. So that's a lot of information. Okay. I should probably add that at the end of the sharing, I will be writing a transcript. So I'll be writing out everything that you say, and we'll save all the important information and all the undang-undang that needs to be noted. And so people can always review it, and it's recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving along. So we've got a couple other questions here that we previously received. So how are we doing in terms of implementing the NDCs that were originally submitted? What are the exact binding terms in terms of like something more like kind of understandable or tangible, something that we can see at the moment maybe? Is there something that you can comment on that?
Yeah, so I can comment based on our role in Commission 7. Remembering again that within the NDCs, there are so many different sectors, right? One of them being the energy, and then the forestry, waste, etc. When we're talking about waste, for example, well, for now, because the working partner for Commission 7, we're no longer with the Ministry of Environment for the time being. Right, and so right now, Commission 4 is actually dealing with the forestry sector, the waste sector, and even agriculture and so forth. Whereas Commission 7, we're more heavily focused on the energy sector. Now, as for the energy sector, given the target that we had, as I mentioned earlier of 23%, we are currently, especially when we talk about electricity generation, we are at 12.2% being run by renewable energy in Indonesia. But also remembering that given the 23% target, there's still a long way to go. And 2025 is literally just around the corner, right? And so what I'm hoping is, yeah, and what I'm hoping is that we can, as soon as we get this law passed, it will help the industry run going forward. It will help the industry accelerate going forward. That's what I'm hoping for. And aside from that, another thing that I wanted to kind of highlight is that the Commission 7 right now, we, as part of our function in supervising what the government is currently doing, we also travel across Indonesia to several power plants, for example, whether it be run by renewables or even not, but in that sense, we have the capability to really just supervise the government in doing their job. And so I think a few months ago, we visited a power plant run by solar energy, solar panels in Oelpuah, it's called, NTT, Nusa Tenggara Timur. And we see directly the kind of impact that it's had on societies living in that area, and how previously they've experienced extensive blackouts. They've never experienced a situation where they had constant electricity running. And so given now that the power plant has been established in that area, and the president actually came as well
Wow.
so he came to the site, and seeing firsthand how that's impacted society is truly what keeps me going, seeing the kind of impact that it's made, and to also make sure that we get this conversation going. I think being in the sector, being in the sustainability sector, and having so much concern in the environment and sustainability and etc., it can be tiring in a sense, because looking around, not everybody has the same mindset or the same goals, right? And so I feel that there are different techniques that we can use to get people to our path in that sense. To really just put sustainability as a forefront.
I suppose with the increasing usage of renewable energies, that would open up a lot of jobs, don't you think? And so then people, so it's not that when we move to a more sustainable system, we decrease the number of jobs and people then lose out, but actually it opens up a whole many new things.
Agreed.
And it helps the economy. Because I think if I'm not mistaken, I just personally, if I may add into this, the big worry for moving elsewhere from the fossil fuels and what we actually already have now was the fact that it may cause a lot of jobs to disappear. Whereas actually, when we think about this, the whole system, the whole ecosystem, right? Not the nature, but the whole ecosystem of how everything is run, there's so many possibilities out there that we haven't actually touched on, I think, for Indonesia at least, because I think, remembering last week's talk, we get sun 24/7, well, not 24/7, but like every single day of the year, unlike different parts of the world where they've got seasons, and it'd be they'd have a few hours of sun, whereas here we're so blessed with a lot of sun, obviously in different ways. Everyone's blessed in different ways. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing the renewable energy sector grow here for sure, and not just solar energy, but geothermal and wind power and all these. So I think I hope our friends come back and work in these sectors. So that would be
I
great.
so I really hope so.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving along, I remember you mentioned in the past something about a green economy caucus. Would you
Yeah.
like to share a little bit more on that?
Yes, I would love to. So, the Green Economy Caucus is a caucus within the Indonesian Parliament, which basically seeks to really just create a sustainable future, right? Our goal is to mitigate climate change, to find solutions to climate change. And I wanted to share something that I learned at university. So, I studied at Imperial College London for my master's. And I remember being constantly reminded by how, in order to solve climate change, you need to implement a multidisciplinary approach. So it's not a one man's job, but it's literally everybody's job, right? And we're talking about not only the parliament doing their job in terms of creating the legislations needed to be carried forward, not even only the ministry's job, the government's job, right? But it's also the job for every activist, for every CSO, for every community, even the public-private sectors. You know, everybody plays a part, even academia. You know, everyone plays a part in creating this future that we want. And so the whole idea behind the Green Economy Caucus is within the parliament, there are 11 commissions, and every commission has its own specialty, right? For example, in Commission 1, it deals with foreign affairs. And then Commission 4, as I mentioned before, talks about the forestry, agriculture, maritime affairs. You know, Commission 7, the energy sector, research and technology. Commission 10 deals with education. These are just to list a few of the existing commissions in the parliament. And so given the diversity that is there, we thought it would be best to create a caucus which combines members from each commission who have an interest in the sustainability field, right? Why is this important? It's important so then, for example, in creating solutions to climate change, there are so many different ways. For just an example, you can say that, well, every student in schools, they should be given the knowledge of how to better take care of their environment, right? How to do composting, for example, or what it means to save energy or electricity and so forth. And so what better way than to incorporate this within the educational system? And so we would have members from Commission 10, for example, who is already in the Green Economy Caucus. They can voice this out in their commission to make sure that this is passed on some sort of bill. But then when we talk about, for example, renewable energy, that would be like my responsibility, right? And so we discuss and we talk about, okay, well, we need a renewables plan. We need to make sure that we meet the 23% target. There's a potential in the Nusa Tenggara Timur area or, you know, other areas in Indonesia. How can we do this going forward? Then that would be my job as a member of Commission 7 to voice it out, to use my voice, voice it out in the meetings that are carried out in my commission. And so there's kind of like a collaborative movement within the parliamentary system. That's one. But secondly, what's amazing about this caucus is that it also opens the doors to not only parliamentarians, but literally, as I mentioned earlier, every sector. So going forward, and it's been done already because this was established in 2009. So it's been more than 10 years, right? It's been more than 10 years. And what they did in the past was really just gather the private public sectors, institutions, schools, universities, you know, get a roundtable discussion going. And this is basically so then the parliamentarians are more aware of the problems being felt on the ground. It opens up discussion. Our job is to not only give an update, but to also listen to the you know, the thoughts that they each had, to make sure that we pass on the correct message. And one of our goals also is to make sure that we push scientific-based policies at the Indonesian Parliament, right? And so this is something that hopefully can sustain itself going forward, and this type of discussion is what we need. This sector, as I said earlier, can be a tiring sector because you feel like you are just not
Oh,
doing enough,
absolutely.
right? Like, it's like, what change am I really making? Ideally, you know, am I really making a difference? But when we, but you know what?
I get you.
On the
Yeah.
more positive side is to make sure that we keep the conversation going, so we become a source of motivation for each other. So then we carry out the right things and the things that is actually needed for Indonesia to prosper going forward, either environmentally, economically, and also socially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Green Drinks Jakarta is a very, very small fish in this big ocean of environmental activism. Um, but I think being able to speak one on one with people who are in the industry, I think
Yeah,
that's a source of motivation for people who can maybe only talk about it more than they can actually go into the field and then, I don't know, plant
yeah.
trees or do these things. So I hope there's more people in the parliament that are as passionate as you are, because
But I think that's the
yes,
exciting thing.
yes, that's
There's
great.
so
That's
many.
good
Yeah,
news.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
Okay. So, moving along then, there's been I suppose there's an echo of the same concern, for the past, I suppose, few weeks that we've been talking about this during quarantine. Um, it seems like the government, I suppose, places a massive importance on economic growth, right?
Yes.
This is basically the bread and butter of Indonesia as a whole, I suppose. Um, is there, this is a, yeah, this is a personal question. Is there like a fear that if we were to invest in sustainability as a whole, not just in energy and not just in research and technology, is there a fear that we lose out on that economic growth, or is there an understanding that yes, there's huge potential, but yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the fear
That's
is,
a
I
really good question.
suppose. Mm.
It's a really, really good question. And the way I see it is that one of the fastest ways of, establishing economic growth is to be
Mm.
involved in industries that emit the most. And so
Mm.
this is, I feel, is one of the biggest problems. But as you mentioned earlier as well, I feel that there needs to be some sort of a mindset shift going forward, especially given the fact that not only is climate change is real, not only is it real, sorry, but we're starting to see the kind of impacts that it has on our daily lives, right? And so I think people need to understand the urgency of this, and as long as the government understand the urgency, the policymakers generally, the government, the parliament understands this emergency and also urgency, then that means we can push the right policies going forward that is more accommodating to sustainable measures, right? But and also, with that being said, this will pave way to an increase in job opportunities in probably a different field to what we're used to. But you know what, like, we are so comfortable with how things are right now, to the point where we don't have it in us to change so drastically, right? But this is the whole idea behind a subtle shift within the energy mix, for example. Whereas before we were so much predominantly occupied, in focusing on the fossil fuel industry. But now, okay, there's been some improvements. We have a new target for the renewable sector. So this is the shift that we're looking for. And I think we need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Be comfortable with change. And to be honest, to put it on a more positive light as well, just take this pandemic as an example. This pandemic it's not only put a strain in our physical health, our mental health, but also the economy all over the world, right? And but what I kind of observed from this experience is that human beings are very adaptive creatures. So when they're forced to be put in this particular situation, they become innovative. They adapt, they become innovative, and they think about how they can survive, right? Whether it be surviving in terms of their business, or surviving mentally, like how, and also in terms of their physical health, right? And so this kind of idea is the same when it comes to living a more sustainable life and pushing through sustainability as a source of economic growth. I think right now, for us to think that sustainability can be a driving force for economic growth is very minimal, right? We don't think that that's the situation. It just doesn't make any sense, because most of the industries right now being run, for example, using fossil fuels, are the most that has proven to be more effective in terms of growing our economy. That's just where we are right now. But we've not explored enough, I feel, within the sectors that are better for the environment. And sure, they say, like, technology is expensive. Research in this sector is also expensive. It doesn't make economic sense. But if we talk about the negative externalities associated to economic growth that also harms the environment, that harms society, like, for example, if greenhouse gas emissions stay constantly the same, that impacts our health, right? And when it impacts our health, that means it's impacting human capital atau sumber daya manusia in Indonesia. And that means that if the society can't sustain itself, then how can we expect for these people to live long enough to continuously make Indonesia prosper? Given that we need people to be involved in the market, we need people to be involved in the job market, and so forth. So this way of thinking is something that we need to constantly remind ourselves of. We need to remind the right people, but also the power of the people is so significant in this sense as well. Understanding that, societies have the rights to convey their concerns. And
Yeah.
I can tell you now that we have parliamentarians who are very, very, very concerned with these issues. And we will be the first ones to listen and to make sure that we communicate the right things within the parliamentary system to get the right bills being pushed across going forward. I guess that's what I can say for now.
Okay. How about you personally? Is there like a specific outcome you personally would like to see, or is there a certain, I suppose, the entity or industry or businesses that you'd like to be more involved in making Indonesia a lot more sustainable? Like, what's your personal hope and dream?
Okay, my personal hope is that I think the key to everything, the key to change is collaboration. And my hope is that we're able to collaborate more effectively and just better going forward. And
Okay.
that I want everybody to know here, for those of you still tuning in, firstly, awesome. But secondly, you guys each and every one of you has a role to play. And what I like to always remind people is that, you guys, you need to really just introspect with regards to what role you play in making this difference, in creating a sustainable future. And then going forward, we can brainstorm on how we can work together. For example, the Green Economy Caucus is hoping to get this conversation going. Hopefully we can even meet in Parliament and have this discussion and to making sure that we're pushing the right things and that we're saying the right things. We're pushing scientific-based policies as well. So collaboration, to be honest, Bianca, is one of the most important things. I envision definitely a future where, sustainability is at the center of every human activity, whatever that may be. I can help in this sense through Commission 7 with the establishment of the Renewable Energy Bill, right? And also there are some changes that we are, seeing in the Parliament as well. Small changes like no longer using plastic bottles in meetings. This has never been done, Bianca. It's been discussed, but has never been done before in the history of DPR. So, you know, seeing that we're able to make this change and seeing that
That
we're able
happened.
to, yes, it happened. It happened.
Alhamdulillah.
So what happened
Gosh,
was
it's amazing.
I voiced this out during the plenary session. And even before that, people were saying to me, hati-hati loh, you know, belum tentu bisa. People were saying, be careful, they might not hear you out, you know,
Yeah,
regardless,
yeah, yeah.
might not listen to what you have to say. But you know what? Like, one of the main things of creating this change is to be confident enough with what you have to say. And as soon as I voiced it out, the next day, literally, there were no longer any plastic bottles in any meeting room. So even Commission 7, we've all kind of like shifted to like cups. Well, glass cups. Does that make sense? Like glass, basically. As opposed to the plastic bottles that we're used to seeing every day. So these are the kind of changes that we want to see. What better yet to have this be done on a national level.
Yeah.
You know, and see where it goes going forward. But make sure that you guys just know what your role is, and let's work together.
Yes, yes, collaboration is definitely key. I suppose we can move on to some questions that have been mentioned in the chat. There's one about sustainable living for the ones that are maybe not as fortunate to be able to get bamboo products or, you know, these high-end zero waste goods and things like that. Are there little like things that you may want to mention and share with us so that we can change our habits, I suppose?
Oh, okay. Like lifestyle habits, I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everything again starts from ourselves, right? One of the things, well, what I had in mind when I kind of like urged for the parliament to no longer use plastic bottles is to make sure that we walk our talk, you know. I found it so ironic where I'm sitting in a room discussing about sustainability and have a plastic bottle in front of me where everyone is drinking out of it. It felt really funny, you know, and I felt like a hypocrite. Like, you know, you're saying this, you're talking about it, you're so passionate about it, but you're not changing your lifestyle. And so I think it's so important to just walk your talk and to make sure that you're creating the changes that you want to see on a daily basis. So for example, you may be used to using I don't know, plastic bags or plastic bottles, right, on a daily basis. You can start day by decreasing the amount of plastic waste that you create on a daily basis. You can opt for example, reusable bags as opposed to plastic bags. You can opt for tumblers, or you know, bring your own tumbler to work kind of lifestyle, as opposed to using plastic bottles. You know, they're just it may seem like a little change, but I believe that when we implement small changes on a regular basis, it will create such a significant impact. And things like that, I feel, can become the new norm. It can become the new normal in implementing a more sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, and definitely, because it also does something within us when we try to change our habits and get used to maybe a little bit of discomfort, but for the good of the greater, I suppose. Yeah. And do you have any, because I think we are nearing our 45-minute mark. Have you got any last words, last messages to share with us?
I think I've pretty much just said it all just now. But I would like to ask you personally, you know, like what do you hope, Bianca, going forward? How do you think Indonesia can really just implement, you know, this sustainable future? How can we realize, a sustainable future? What's the best way we can do this?
Yeah,
or
I
really,
would like.
What's your dream for Indonesia?
Yeah. I suppose this is one of the reasons why I personally got involved with Green Drinks Jakarta, is because I know the renewable energy sector here in Jakarta or even in Indonesia is still quite niche. It's quite small, but it is there, and our potential is massive. we don't only just have sun, but we have geothermal, and we are an archipelago surrounded by an ocean. Do not tell me that we don't have waves to work with. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit extreme, but that's what I would like to see. Like I remember being in green school. This is last maybe minute. Remember being an intern in green school and seeing the vortex being worked on, and seeing the lifestyle that we had there, completely different to Jakarta, obviously, but it is doable. It's not even at the expense, so much at the expense of luxury, of comfort. In fact, luxury, you know what I mean? Like, we still could be comfortable, but just maybe switch our sources of energy. And if it's investment that we need, like, Esti, let us know. What do we have to do? Who do we have to call? Because our industry is growing. People of the environment sector are coming together. If you see in the past couple of years, it's been an issue. It's been talked about. People are changing. People are becoming vegan. People are becoming more conscious about their straws, which, it seems like a minor thing, but it's a massive deal.
Yes.
So I hope we could still continue this conversation and another time. Maybe to hear about the updates about the caucus. So again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Bianca, before we end it, I wanted to tell you that there are a couple of parliamentarians actually that came and stopped by.
No.
I don't think they're tuning in anymore.
That's great.
But, my friends from Commission 1, both of them are from Commission 1, and also who was previously in Commission 7, they tuned in. So, and
awesome.
they're
That's very good news.
Very vocal about the things that they care about, and seeing 10% of the elected members of parliament are below the age of 40 now. There are around 50 of us, which is incredible. So having this youth voice in parliament is so amazing. And so hopefully we can all collectively voice out sustainable issues going forward together.
So I suppose this goes out to the audience. Thank you again, Esti, and thank you everyone for watching. If you'd like to follow updates on Komisi 7, Commission 7, and Esti's personal work, you can follow her on Instagram at Dyah with a Y and an H, Dyah Roro Esti WP. Or even email you. Can people email you about their questions? Because we did miss a lot. You can email at dyahroroesti@gmail.com, which is DAYAHROROESTI@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Great. I think that's it. Thank you so much again. Yes, likewise. Really looking forward to the next one then.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, bye guys. Thank you.
Bye.